my wife and I were married, I assumed I was heterosexual, and it wasn't until many years later that I realized I was bisexual. But both of us are in fields where communication is important, and we've always been honest on anything that might affect the other person. We gradually knew that a traditional marriage wasn't right for us. We knew how to negotiate things, and we spent at least a couple years working through to find agreements that were right for both of us. So we had not just worked through the terms that would allow my bisexuality to exist actively in the context of our marriage, but we needed to work through specific agreements on this. And when we finally had done that, then we decided that we actually wanted to celebrate it and have a ceremony. So before we went through with a marriage ceremony, Sandy decided she needed some time to be away from me, to sense in herself whether it was right for her and whether she could do it. A man who'd become a friend of each of us. I mean, it wasn't a couple friend, it was a man who was living alone now. We both trusted Bill, and Sandy decided she would like to move into Bill's home for a while, a matter of a couple weeks, a month, she didn't know yet. She stayed there for, I can't remember, 2 or 3 weeks at least. She was working a job as well, but to figure out where she was for sure. And then one day she called me and she said, I want to come home and see you. Shall I bring my suitcase? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, do you want me to stay? I said, I sure do. And so she came home with her suitcase. And we knew that this was a marriage we could live with. We both love symbols and rings and ceremonies, but we also have to go through this process of being sure we've heard the other cognitively and emotionally, and get it into words both ways, and then get it into practical, what does this actually mean in day-to-day life. And so all that work we had done before we actually had the second ceremony. So we had 2 ministers conduct this wedding ceremony in our home, and we invited mostly other couples who already knew about our marriage and were very, very supportive, and had this beautiful ceremony. And our home at that time was in the woods. Whether you're gay or bisexual or lesbian or straight, to survive in a culture that's dominated by words and things, you need to really put energy into the relationship itself, the communication. Part of our process is that we are forced to put into words where we are, and that we listen deeply enough so we hear both the feelings and the meanings of the other person. And if you can't put it into words or somehow communicate it to each other, then you don't really know where you are.